Anyways, let's get to it. So, guys, the first one we're going to talk about Stuttering John suing Carl from Who Are These Podcasts and Shuley from the Shuley Network and the Shuley Show. And remember, these guys are the Dabblers. And remember, the Dabbleverse really came out. It was like its original basically mission purpose, of how everything created was to A-log the fuck out of Stuttering John, because he dabbled in stand-up, as it were. So, Stuttering John sued Carl and Shuley for holding DabbleCon, which was, the East Coast version, TardCon East. Because we have Hackamania out in the West, so they do TardCon East. And they had a whole thing about Stuttering John, and, they all sat there and, laughed at him because, he's a goober. And Stuttering John cried because they use his pictures and they use his name as part of, come laugh at Stuttering John being a retard, among other things. That's like the crash course through the lawsuit. We don't really need to address it too much more. Yes, it's all the Opie and Anthony and Howard Stern remnants. It's people who still think it's 2005 and they're the inheritors of the shock jock radio world that could take over. So, as we were talking with this case initially got filed down in New York City. Carl and Shuley were able to use their attorney to get the lawsuit moved up to Rochester, New York, which is like 5 hours away, because that's where they did their DabbleCon thing at. They did it all up in Rochester, New York, and it made sense. Let's sue where, let the lawsuit should be where it happened. So it got moved, and a bunch of things have been going on. Stuttering John's attorneys have been radio silent and basically disappeared after a ton of insane motion practice. There's a couple motions to dismiss. There's a bunch of other cross filings that were going on. And the judge up there set this for a hearing today. And then from here, a bunch of kind of funny things happen. As this starts going here, Stuttering John's attorneys, they start crying and they got excuses for everything. They got an excuse for everything, guys. They got an excuse for everything. And this guy, he's got two of them. One of them's named Susser, and yeah, okay, he's sussy. Yep. So they call in, and it's set for it was set for today, the hearing date, and the court said it was set for 11 a.m. So what do these guys do? Well, they jerk around. They don't really communicate with the court, Stuttering John, his attorneys. So the court has to set a date and kind of forces the date on. So the attorney for Stuttering John's like, look, it's really bad. I can't make it. I've got a lot of problems. Please help me, judge. And very much, it's kind of par for the course when it comes to Nick and Melton. We're waiting for the last minute for things, waiting the last minute on things. And he asked for a continuance. He says, I have a previously set mediation for that day in a New Jersey case. He said, I could be available other days, including Hitler's birthday. Happy birthday to the most based Austrian painter ever. He says, currently defending before the court are various motions whose outcomes will greatly affect the course of continued litigation. Well, I mean, when they get denied, no, they won't, because your lawsuit's awful and you guys should be sanctioned for it. So no, it's not going to be continued. The judge is going to kill it. So he requested a conference, and he says that, he doesn't think it'll last more than 20 minutes. He says, I live in New Jersey. And he says the time to travel back and forth to Rochester, including getting to and from the airport and the courthouse and clearing airport security, will be at least 6 hours. Womp, 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 womp. There's also an expense of airfare and my fees. Then hop in a fucking car, dude. He says, another reason I have this request is my mom is 100 years old and was hospitalized, and she's in a rehab facility. Please help me, judge. It's so bad. Please help me. And he's like, please help. Carl's attorney points out, yeah, this guy is full of shit. And they point out that, Stuttering John's attorneys never contacted Carl's attorneys. They've never been involved. They aren't taking part in things. They've reached out repeatedly, no, we're not going to agree to anything because you guys have not done anything. You've basically told us to go fuck ourselves. They say both plaintiffs' attorneys are completely unresponsive and unavailable. And they point out here that this is already stuff we talked about before. They rehash all the things they've done. that we tried to contact him repeatedly. We never heard back from him at all. And finally, after having been ignored for an entire week, they went ahead and scheduled the conference by email. So this thing was done by Carl's attorneys and the court. Stuttering John's attorneys didn't bother showing and getting involved. Shortly after all that happened, at 12:08 p.m., so like a half hour later, they finally responded. A week after the email, the Monday email. And they said it's more cryptic. He said, I'm dealing with an emergency. I will respond on Monday. And he says it's too late. The court already set the date. And they point out that the guy never responded on Monday. He never responded to the court until now, so 12 days after he said he would. And then they find out that he has a lot of bad luck and it's not, everything doesn't work out. Months ago, though, they tried to get him to settle. And, no, fuck settling with Stuttering John. He's a piece of shit. He pointed out he got in a fender bender and he needed to buy a new car. And then he had some health issues with his mom in Florida. It says, unfortunately, I fell for all of it, which, you know what? There's nothing wrong with, being collegial as an attorney. And if the other attorney takes advantage of you, you know what? There's no shame in that. That's on him for being a piece of shit. You did the right thing. I expressed sympathy for his plights, not realizing I was being gullible. My gullibility caused my clients even more unnecessary fees, which you could seek, but, Stuttering John won't be able to pay. But apparently they learned this is a modus operandi for him. He misses deadlines, then fires off a late excuse-laden email to the court. And how can he check in other cases? Because New York and other states, they have a unified court system. So all this stuff is searchable by attorney, and you can find out every court they operate in case they have. Here, like in a place like Ohio, it's not unified. So you would have to go to each of the 88 counties and find, various court filings, but then you have to search around for them. So there is a lot there. Johan says, why would you fly from New Jersey to Rochester? I don't know. Remember, Stuttering John's a lol cow, and lol cows hire lawyers. Carl and Shuley actually hired a very competent lawyer, which is kind of interesting because normally these guys don't do it. These guys normally don't do it. Oh, I misspoke. Miss Brett is a court clerk. But there's a case, in 2025 where he missed a bunch of deadlines. When he tells the court in Queens, that means in, Queens, the borough, that he's late because he had a hemorrhage of blood vessels behind one of my eyes. Second, his office underwent a burst sprinkler pipe. He packed up boxes and he hurt his arm. He ruptured his right arm bicep tendon. And then finally, he was been called in to assist with several time-sensitive matters. So all of this, we also had physical therapy. And then he points out in February, he missed more deadlines. And he's like, I was in a car accident. And it's in the same case. So he just points out all the bullshit that he's been involved in here. And then a week out of the office to buy a car. Yeah, I don't buy that either. And then he somehow mistakenly believed he had done work, but he hadn't done it. And it's one thing to offer these opposing counsel, but it's another to make these to right, guys, remember, a Supreme Court justice means a trial level judge. Remember, in New York, the Supreme Court is the bottom level, and the Court of Appeals is the top. So Stuttering John said on April 1st that, he didn't, have his lawyers anymore. So Stuttering John kept talking about what's going on here. And then finally they point out, why are we making a big deal about this? Well, he's like, I've never had to do this. I always try to agree to, continuances and accommodate counsels. That's what a German is, a continuance. I accept that all this could seem petty. He's like, I also realize this letter creates the risk of more work for the court. But he says, this is unlike any case I've ever handled. Yeah, lawsuits are ridiculous. And the defendants are, his clients are not large insurance companies or cities. They're, they have to pay out of pocket to defend the case. A case the attorneys have abandoned or don't care enough to respond to when the court, gets a hold of them. They fail to respond to the court. When the court has to follow up, it costs my clients money. When they file unorthodox affidavits that they have to respond to, which John did a lot, It costs money. He says, I apologize for the letters, but I hope that the court understands we only want to move the case forward and kill it, which it should happen. The court ordered an in-person conference. The defendants will be there. Defense counsel made his travel arrangements. Plaintiff's counsel should be there too, in person for their own case. Yes. If you want to prosecute this case, you should be there. So the court didn't, they're saying deny the request for a virtual conference or an adjournment. So no Zoom, no continuance. Well, Stuttering John's attorney comes right back. And again, actually, hold on. Did I get these on the wrong thing here? Did I click the wrong? Oh, I think I did. Oh, crap. I did the wrong one. No, I did the right one. I did the right one. And he basically gets all upset and he gets all butthurt. He's like, how dare you? I'm sure he shaked as he huffed on his vape, typing this out. Yes, Will Heron's been cited in a footnote. Hey, but now he's been preserved. He's immortal now. Immortality. So he says, conspicuously absent from letters, any reason why counsel needs to appear in person and spend most of the day traveling for what will be a best a 20-minute conference. This is where if you had been in touch with the plaintiff and you had been in touch with the court, this probably would have been avoided. This is entirely your guys' fault, as opposed to a more economical and practical method of participation. Because you didn't do this. Because you didn't stay in contact. If you had stayed in contact, this would have been addressed. There probably wouldn't have been a big deal. They say similarly, they don't explain why the date cannot be moved either before or after my arbitration date. Plaintiff can only surmise why. It's to unnecessarily add to the plaintiff's costs in this litigation. It's too fucking bad. You're the one who caused, you guys started the lawsuit. Oh, driving up costs for the plaintiffs. Then don't have a lawsuit. To sit here and go, oh no, we didn't know it's going to cost money. Come on, man. Come on. They say, we understand the defendant's attorney's fees are being paid via GoFundMe or similar crowdfunding platform. Well, Stuttering John has a GoFundMe. It's just nobody gives him any fucking money. Generate, and this is like, I swear to God, I need to do this as a CLE for attorneys. To generate content for a number of podcasters, social influencers, and subscribers of defendant's podcast. By way of example, this generated a following podcast. And this is Lucy Typebox. I think that's another name. But anyways, she did a video. Stuttering John. Notice he screenshotted the live part, which is like, Stuttering John's attorney's having a really bad, no good day. You don't get to comment on this. Don't comment on this crap. If the internet's making fun of you, you just got to let it go. You don't help the case by doing this. You can't attack people now. You just can't do it. And he points out my bad luck. I'm disappointed they claim my health and personal issues are a weapon. Well, you're using them as a shield, so yes, they can use them as a sword. And he says, as they noted, I had a hemorrhage behind my left eye. I can assure the court this is no minor situation. It required visits to my retina doctors and ophthalmologist. Well, it'd probably be your ophthalmologist anyway. And the hemorrhaging stopped and my eye pressure is controlled by daily eye drops twice a day. Similarly, my car turned out to be more than a fender bender, as the insurance company told him my car. Yes, it took several days for me to buy a car, and he goes, my initial letter did not elaborate on my health issues, but I can assure the court they're very real. I have attended to my mommy. She's old. If they were in a Medicaid situation, I peeled in one. Nobody fucking cares, blah, 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 blah. He says, call it bad luck. It's my life. It's like Russell Greer. I'm a human being. It's fucking Russell Greer, literally. Thankfully, nothing is life-threatening. Nonetheless, I wouldn't wish this present situation to anyone. For the reason set forth, I request a continuance. And the judge comes back and he goes, no. The judge says, nope. Everybody had ample time to be heard on scheduling prior to the conference being set. And you didn't respond, so it's done. It was set for today at 11 a.m. failure to party when appear may result in the action being taken. So everybody showed up and dated on the Austrian painter's day of glory. So what happened today? Well, from what we've heard and what's been disclosed so far, the court's going to take everything under advisement. Everything's going to be considered filed by May 18th. The court is not holding oral arguments. It's not going to discuss the motions to dismiss or any of the motions that have been filed. It's not going to have oral arguments on that. It's going to take the filings as submitted and make a ruling on the filings. And the judge told them it will be out within 60 days of the 18th of May. So mid-July, we'll have an answer on this. But until then, nothing. So Stuttering John showed up and everybody showed up, so case wasn't dismissed. So there you go. Very, very uneventful chat, but, I figured I'd tell you what it was because I tells you what it is because that's what I do. That's what I do.